I'm very happy to be here at Bumps. Yeah, every time I come here, I get a sense of peace. Yeah, because I remember I was here for a retreat, and it was a very good retreat. So when I come, I remember the very peaceful experiences in this building. So today I have been asked to speak on this topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion in Buddhism. And I've learned quite a lot of things, to tell you the truth. Yeah, ever since I agreed to take this topic, and I've gone into this term. It is a very well-used term, this DEI. The young people are very familiar with it, yeah, whereas us, over 60s, seem to be blur, in a kind of a cloud about this term. I have heard of it, but I didn't know the extent which I had to cover to prepare for this talk. So thanks to this invitation, I've learned something new, and I've had to expand the scope of my preparation to understand it well. But I must let you know, when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion in Buddhism, what I share with you today, quite a lot of it is my own interpretation. I have based it on the teachings of people I know. But then I have interpreted it in a way I see as being sincere. Because I don't want to say something which I don't believe when I share the Dhamma with you. And you are free, of course, I hope, to express your views as well. Because when we talk about this topic, when we discuss this topic of inclusion, we are including, in fact, all living beings. And when you include all living beings in this discussion, you can imagine the scope of the issues and the matters that are involved in this. I learned the Dhamma during my early days under a late chief, Venerable K. Sri Dhammananda. Some of you may know him, some of you might have met him, but since he passed away in the year 2006, I know that many Buddhists have come into the dispensation or come into learning since then, and the influence, the effect of late chief is now waning, is not so strong. But for us old ones, above 50, I would say, we have a very respectful memory of late chief. Once, late chief said to me, or I did ask him, what do you think about the number of Buddhists in this world? In fact, how many actual schools of Buddhism is there? That was the question. We asked him, how many schools of Buddhism are there? And of course, the answer that comes to mind is 3. There is Theravada, there is Mahayana, and there is Vajrayana. But late chief's answer gave me a deep understanding of his knowledge of the Buddha's teachings. There are 400 million, not a billion, 400 million Buddhists in this world. We don't really know the exact figure. The last count was 390 something estimated Buddhists in this world. And late chief said, there are 398 schools of Buddhism in this world. So what does it tell you? That tells you that as we learn the Buddha's teachings, we are interpreting the Buddha's teachings in our own way. Yeah, in the way that we see the world, we make sense of the Buddha's teachings. Unless and until we get the final enlightenment, which is arahantship. Yeah, we cannot see the full scope of the Buddha's teachings as it really is. Yeah, you are seeing one part of it, I am seeing one part of it, and hopefully together as a society, as a community, yeah, we make the Buddha's teachings acceptable, yeah, to as many people as possible. You will practice certain things, I will practice certain things that are meaningful to me, but it might not be meaningful to you. And of course, a lot of this depends on how much we understand, yeah, the Buddha's teachings. How deep do we go into the core of what we see or what we term reality? Because the teachings of the Buddha concerned only reality. How to see that which is real and not to see that which we want to see or imagine or hallucinate or even daydream. Yeah, I don't have the slide of this, but there were researchers from the Harvard University Medical School in America. Yeah, Harvard is a very respected academic institution. And these people found that human beings, they sent out an app, yeah, on the iPhone. Yeah, and these people, whenever they sent out a message, these people would record the state of mind, and the responses, yeah, would be tabulated. It was found by these two doctor researchers that human beings are daydreaming. They are not in conscious thought 47% of our waking hours. That means we are daydreaming 47% of the time that we consider ourselves awake. In actual fact, I think it is wrong. I think we are daydreaming more than 47% of the time. You know, when we get caught in a traffic jam, yeah, and the car is not moving, automatically we start thinking some story or other. We develop, you know, a fairy tale in our head. That means we are daydreaming. We are imagining things. Yeah. So I hope when you come to this hall, you stay awake. The opposite of daydreaming, I'll just ask you, what do you think is the opposite of this state of mind? Daydreaming. Present. Present means what? What do you practice to be present? Mindfulness. Yeah. To me, yeah, my interpretation, yeah, is the opposite of daydreaming is mindfulness. Mindfulness is being awake, yeah, is being together with the present, at the present moment. Yeah, and I was discussing with my friends the other day, yeah, the Buddha's teachings can never be old-fashioned, can never be out of date. Because why? The truth of the Buddha's teachings is always in the present moment. You can access the Buddha's teachings if you are mindful in the present moment, in the here and the now. So how can the Buddha's teachings be old-fashioned, as some people want to say? It cannot. It is always now, now, now. You can see the Buddha's teachings now, now, now. Right? So all you need to do is to develop this mindfulness and be in the present moment. That's what the Buddha actually wanted. You know, that we see this reality. So we call it truth. Yeah, we call it Dhamma. We sometimes call it teachings. Yeah, these teachings, this Dhamma, this truth, this reality is always in the present moment. Yeah. So that's some information which I'd like to share with you, yeah, before we go into this topic. So DEI, Yeah, remember this: diversity, equity, and inclusion. In Buddhism, or shall we say, in the Buddha's teachings, in the dispensation, the sasana, this dispensation, the time that the teachings are alive and accessible in this world, we call this time the sasana. Yeah. Eventually, this sasana will come to an end. Yeah, people will not remember the teachings of the Buddha. Yeah, although the Dhamma is here, the teachings will go off. Yeah, already the teachings are being watered down. And there are so many different inaccurate interpretations of the Buddha's teachings. Sometimes, when I read here and there what people say about the Buddha's teachings, it is a sure sign to me that the sasana, the dispensation, is really disappearing, going downhill. There will come a time when Buddhists will only chant, according to sutta. There will come a time Buddhists will come together and say, Namo Tassa, okay, we finished. That's it, let's go home. That will be the extent of Buddhist activity. Yeah, there's no meditation. Meditation will be the first to disappear. What is the most noble, the most sublime, will be the first to go. And then after that, there will be Dhamma talks, there will be chanting. Then no more Dhamma talks also, only chanting. And even then, the chanting will come to 1 or 2 words, and then Buddhists will say, yes, we've done our duty. And after that, it will totally disappear. Yeah, people will remember there was some teacher, fully enlightened, but we don't have his teachings anymore. Yeah, and when that state comes and stays for a few, shall we say, a few 100,000 years, right? When nobody remembers the teachings of Gautama, the fully enlightened Buddha, then it will be time for the next Buddha to appear. Yeah, because one Buddha's teachings cannot be there, if another Buddha wants to appear and teach, in this world. So, inclusion, equity, diversity, how do we look at it as a Buddhist? First of all, why do we need to have these terms? That's because human beings, when they organize themselves, when we organize ourselves, very frequently we like to have what is called in-groups and out-groups in very many different ways. In-groups means a social category or group with which you identify with very strongly. So if we are Buddhists, we form a group. And when you go to, let's say, a gathering, a convention or something, you will look for other Buddhists because you want to be with your in-group. Then together you feel more secure. You feel you have kawan in this group. You have others that think like you. But if they don't think like you, they don't have your way of seeing the world, they don't have your world view, you call them the out-group. And the out-group is a social category or group with which you don't identify with strongly. So which means we don't identify with other groups that are not like us. But even within our group, the big group, there are smaller groups. For example, if we mix with Buddhists, then we'll ask, you Mahayana, you Theravada, you Vajrayana. Okay, any Theravada Buddhists here? All grouped together. Then we'll say, where are the Theravada from Selangor? Okay, grouped together. And so it gets on and on and on until we start feeling comfortable with this in-group. Anyone who is outside is called the out-group. So with us, or with certain groups, the concept or the practice even. Concept is in the mind, but the actual practice of in-group, out-group interactions, or differences are not very strong. With us, Buddhists, it's not very strong. It's because of the flavor or the direction of the Buddha's teachings. We don't tend to see people as, you are with me or you are not with me. In some other faiths or some other religions, the concept of in-group, out-group is very, very strong. If you are not with me, you must be against me. That kind of teaching creates non-diversity, exclusion, not inclusion, include. It excludes people very, very readily. And you can see that within some religions or some faiths, because today we talk about religion, even within the religion, they have strong feelings of in-group, out-group, and they fight each other because of those differences. You don't think like me. I mean, you might be the same religion, but we don't see things the same way. So I must dominate you and push my thinking, my principles, my precepts onto you. Then, right. Then you're on the right path. Right now, although you call yourself, let's say, Buddhist, you are on the wrong path. There's something wrong with your belief. So we can see that in this world, these things are happening. So the out-group, in-group, is very strong with some other teachings. So if you look around, you can see it. If you look around, you will see that groups are fighting. They kill each other. Although they profess to be of the same faith, they are ready to kill each other if they think the other group is doing something wrong, not following the right teachings or the right way of what they are supposed to practice or pray to. So it gives rise to a lot of fear and mistrust. So this thing about diversity and inclusion and equity and being in the same, must take into account how much fear and distrust do we have of other people, of others who are not like us, who have different ways of thinking, who have different world views. They see the world in a different way. This is an important thing to understand when you talk about diversity and inclusion. So the breaking of barriers, this is what we need to do in order to attain or achieve harmony, trust and harmony. We have to learn how to embrace differences, to reduce it, to see how we can dissolve our sense of self, so that other people can come closer to us. So it makes me appreciate late Chief's answer of how many schools of Buddhism are there. He said 300 and at that time 80 million schools of Buddhism. Because your understanding of Buddhism is different from yours, so that's one school. Your understanding is different, so that's another school. We see things differently. But that doesn't mean we cannot get along. That doesn't mean we cannot accept each other. So the accepting of differences, even though we know they are there, is very, very important if we want to create this sense of inclusion. So the Buddha advocated tolerance and acceptance. And I will try and demonstrate it to you that Buddhism, this set of teachings that we are trying to study and practice, its core, its essence, deep down inside, it's all about bringing people who are different together. This is how we should see it. And therefore, if somebody that is not like us comes into our space, comes into our crowd, we should be ready to accept, not be ready to separate, or ask the person, to go off. Can we do that? When we go into society, can we do that with an open heart, with sincerity? Because that was, my dear brothers and sisters, that was what the Buddha did. And I'll try and convince you of that as we go along. So this is my late teacher, Venerable Kesri Dhammananda. He said, Buddhists belong to the religious group that accepts and appreciates the reasonable teachings of every religion. If unreasonable, we cannot. If it involves killing, then we cannot. But if it's to create some kind of harmony, then we can. Buddhists can also tolerate the practices of other religious, cultural traditions and customs, although they may not necessarily wish to emulate them. So late Chief said, in other words, Buddhists respect the other man's views and appreciate other practices without harboring any religious practices. This is called religious tolerance. So Buddhism, or the Buddha's teachings, has been a very tolerant religion. You can see that. Buddhists have never gone to war, to fight in the name of the Buddha. Does it mean that Buddhists don't fight? No, it doesn't mean that. We find that in other countries, as a group, Buddhists do fight. And in fact, Buddhists fight with each other. It's very shameful that in this country, Buddhists have taken each other to court. And it came out in the newspapers that the Buddhists fought each other, legally through the court justice system. And in the newspapers, it was reported, Battle of the Buddhists. And when I read it, I almost melted. It was so embarrassing for Buddhists to fight each other in such a public way. Because the sense of self is so strong. They build a barrier between each other, so much so they will go public in fighting each other. That was a few years ago. Luckily, it was after late Chief passed away. He would have been very, very unhappy to have seen that. So anyway, regarding the in-group and out-group concept, some religions have this word infidel. And this word infidel tells you a lot, because it means you and me cannot be the same. So now there are certain religions who understand that. And in Indonesia, it is quite interesting, which is a very the most populated Muslim country. They have found that there is discussion. We have found that there is discussion to do away with this word kafir. Have you heard of this word? It's an Arabic word. It means infidel. Infidels means you are not with me. You are very different. So they have found that it makes non-Muslims very unhappy and alienated, pushed away. So now they are discussing that. This article came out, in fact, in the year 2019, in the Jakarta Post, where you can see a picture of their president discussing this with the religious leaders. So this is an interesting example of reducing the effects of in-group. The way that you talk about others is also very important if you want to have inclusivity. So now let me show you or share with you a few slides. They are very interesting. That shows how Buddhism or the Buddhist teachings have been assimilated or have gone out into the wider world. The first one are these two coins of the Greek king Menander. And he is featured in the scriptures as King Milinda. Have you heard of the Milinda Panna? Yeah, the questions of King Milinda. He was a Greek king, but he was very interested in religion. And so he gathered all the Buddhist teachers and he questioned them until they were very uncomfortable. But then they called this young monk, Nagasena, to go and talk to the king. And the answers have been recorded as the questions of King Milinda. But his Greek name was Menander. So you can see, and his kingdom was what is now Afghanistan and Pakistan. It's called Bactria. And when he created coins, he put the Dhammachakra in his coin. A Greek king putting Dhammachakra in their currency. Isn't that interesting? Right. To tell you the truth, in fact, after the Buddha passed away, there were Greeks who came to study the Buddha's teachings before the arrival of Alexander the Great. Do you know Alexander the Great? He wasn't really Greek, he was Macedonian. And he conquered his way east. Yeah, and then there are many historians say this was the first time that Greece, you lump them all together, entered the Indus Valley. Not true. Yeah, during Asoka's time, there were Greek monks. And they were so learned, Asoka picked them to go back to Greece to spread the Buddha's teachings. There are not many records of this, but you can find it here and there. Yeah, in some old records. But the next picture, the picture of the two monks, if you look closely at the one on the left, he has blue eyes. He has blue eyes and his hair is red. Yeah, if he doesn't shave, but once shaved, no more hair. Yeah, the one on the right is very clearly Asian. Right. So there were these, and it was found in Central Asia. And it was made in the 9th or 10th century. Yeah, that there were blue-eyed monks, right, in this area of the world. Down there is very interesting to see this mix, because it is a picture of the Buddha protected by Vajapani. Vajapani is a bodhisattva who is very powerful, who protects the Buddha. Yeah, in the stories, But this Vajapani looks exactly like the Greek Hercules. Can you see that? If you look at Greek sculptures, it is Hercules. So there is an easy assimilation, absorption of Buddhist ideas into Western culture. And it's been going on for a long, long time. So it is something which is possible because in the Middle East, before the coming of Jesus, there was a group of people who practiced religious principles by wearing a white robe, with the right hand free. And they were celibate, no marriage, no sex. And they ate once a day. So it sounds very, very similar. And this group of people were called the Essenes. Have you heard of them? Essenes. And the young Jesus went to study and work with them. So it's quite easy for the Buddhist teachings to move around. Yeah, and here, this is modern day. This is the Buddha image from the London Buddhist Center. He looks exactly Matsale. Because if you have a Buddha image in London, why make him look Asian? Right? Make him look European, with the sharp Western features. if you've been up north to Bujang Valley, these are the ruins of an ancient stupa in Kedah. And it's huge. It's in an area called the Bujang Valley. And historians have found that the Bujang Valley at that time was the size of PJ, modern PJ. It was huge. It wasn't small. And the first people to come there to spread religion from India were Buddhists. So during the 10th century, for many, many centuries, you can say the 9th century, the 10th century, 11th century, the people in this country were Buddhists. The first systematic religion of the peninsula was Buddhism. Then only the Hindus came. Because Hindus could not cross the ocean. Yeah, because when they go back, they lose their caste. So they couldn't sail. Buddhists have no caste. So sailed right to Kedah. And they used the name Kadaram. So changed to Kedah. So you can see that the teachings came quite easily, absorbed by people very easily. Yeah, not difficult to be absorbed. And you can see a Buddha image there in the museum that they suspect was made due as early as the 9th century. Yeah, that's very, very long ago. Yeah, almost 1,000 over years ago, right? Yeah, Buddhism was already flourishing here. Then let me share with you a few things that are happening. The first picture, a picture of this huge group of people in India called the Dalit or Untouchables. Yeah, and because they were looked down upon by the mainstream Indian society, they became Buddhists. They had no caste. They are called untouchables. And the mainstream society did not really accept them. And who accepted them? Buddhism. And they were led by the very famous teacher called Dr. Ambedkar. And even today, they are having trouble being assimilated, but there are many missions, Buddhist missions, that are supporting their way of life in India. So thousands upon thousands were brought into Buddhism. And in Africa, Buddhism, I met this monk, Venerable, have you met him? Buddharakita. I met him in Singapore at the Buddhist Fellowship. But he's such a very warm and very friendly monk. And he's brought Buddhism into Africa. And you can see how how open it is. And of course, when we talk about the Western monks, I don't have to tell you here, because you have a steady stream of Western monks coming through. It's a common thing now, to have Westerners wear the robes, put on the saffron, the orange robes, where in countries like Sri Lanka and Thailand, it's harder to find young men to wear these robes. But the Westerners are very happy to wear these robes. Because, it's not strange. As I told you before, the Westerners, like the Greeks, have been studying Buddhism and practicing it for a very long time. And they very surely brought it back to Greece. And so you can see in Greek philosophy, there are elements of the Buddhist teachings. But, and also, the Buddha was very inclusive in that he accepted women into the Sangha. For some time, he did not do that. Because he knew that the life of a nun in ancient India would be very, very hard. Even today, do you know Buddhist nuns are being attacked and raped in India? Today. But at that time, you can imagine how dangerous it was. So the Buddha did not readily give in to the request. And when he gave in to the request of his stepmother, he insisted that the nunnery be near a monastery. That was the very important regulation. If the nuns wanted to start up their own tradition. But he did. Yeah, and women, especially during the Buddhist time, were very much looked down upon. Yeah, and to give them the same status as the monks, people were horrified at the Buddha. How can you do this? And then they said, if you let women into the Sangha, the dispensation, the sasana, I told you about, will be shortened. Do you believe that? Nonsense. How can? It's not true. Yeah, because there are some great Buddhist nuns who have attained, who have practiced hard, who are teaching the way to reality as much as the monks. Kings and beggars, once they entered the Sangha, had the same status. There's a story of the royal princes. They were related to the Buddha. They were princes. And their barber, who cut their hair. And the princes said, few of them said, we will enter the Sangha today. The barber also thought, I will also enter the Sangha. Because they are also enthusiastic, I will go. So after he cut all their hair, they went to get ready. He ran to the Buddha and said, I want to become a monk. So the Buddha said, okay, one of the senior monks, please shave him and give him robes. So when this set of royal young men arrived, the barber was already there as a monk. And the Buddha said, you pay respect to him. Yeah, because he is your senior. He entered before you. And once you put on this robe, you pay respect to him. So you can see the thinking of the Buddha. Yeah, the nature of how he wanted to include as many people as possible into this movement towards seeing reality. What is real, not what is imagined. But it hasn't always been peaceful. The meeting point, the boundary between the Buddha's teachings, the Buddha's practice, and other faiths. I just share this with you. When the Portuguese first came to Sri Lanka, they had the backing of the military. They actually attacked Buddhist temples. And you know the story of Nalanda University that is in the north of India. They were decimated by the army that came from the west. They burned the books, and this fire lasted for months. So there are many, many texts, not just on the Buddha's teachings, on astronomy, on science, on medicine, all burnt up when the invaders attacked Nalanda University. And here you can see when you go to Borobudur, they chop the Buddha's head off. And in India, it's quite common to see that the temples are all broken because the local population take the bricks to build their house. And I noticed when I was in Bodh Gaya, the candles will all disappear. You can light candles, you put there, you make one round, come back, the candle have gone. Because the local people take the candles to light up their own house, right? And of course, in Afghanistan, they blasted the Bamiyan Buddhas until there's a great big empty hole there now. But all the Buddhists did was complain. They didn't go up and, hurt others. How can you do this? Yeah, how can you destroy our holy item? Buddhists just said, why do you do such things? Yeah, and there was one rich Japanese man, very, very rich man. He said to those people when they were putting the dynamite, I will buy from you. Don't blow it up. Yeah, I will buy it from you and then transport this huge Buddha image back to Japan. They said, no, we don't want your money. They blasted. They were more happy blasting it than getting money from Japan. So you can see that the interaction between the Buddhism and others has not always been harmonious. Yeah, when there is a meeting point, it's sometimes very often didn't go well. And you can see what is happening here as well. In Asia, yeah, the other religions, especially Christianity, yeah, needs to convert, needs to have more and more converts. Because in the West, they are losing ground. Yeah. The fastest growing denomination in the US right now, according to Pew Research, is atheists. There are more atheists being counted than any other religion in the US. People simply do not believe anymore. So we believe that every living being has a right to spiritual development. We can't cut them off. We can't say no to them if they want to come in, except in Malaysia, where we always put in our books, on our books, for non-Muslims only. Because it is a decree by the government that we do not share the teachings with Muslims. It is what it is. We can't do anything about that. And we have to observe that very, very much. There was one time I was learning meditation under Brother James Ong. You might remember he's passed away. Yeah, Brother James Ong. And during that evening, this Malay man came with the family and he wanted to learn meditation. Yeah, he was clearly quite stressed. And he said, I heard this meditation helps to calm people down. And Brother James Ong said, no, I cannot accept you. Yeah, because if I accept you, number one, they might close the temple down in Vihara, Brickfields. And number two, they most probably will put me in jail. So Brother James Ong said, no, I think, I'm very sorry, you have to go. But if you really want it, you can go to Singapore or Thailand. Very easy. Yeah, just get a ticket and just go. But here, he said, I can't teach you. So we have to observe the laws of the land. But in every other case, yeah, if anyone wants to study or practice, we have to accommodate them. Yeah. And this is now quite an interesting aspect. Because now, when we exist, when we operate among so many religions, yeah, do we really see that there is no meeting point? Or how do we understand other people's ideas and religion? So, how does the Buddha's teachings stand out as being more inclusive? Number one, we do not have eternal hell. You make a mistake in others, so you better be careful. You make one mistake, you will have to bear with eternal hell. It's eternal, you know, meaning cannot stop. In Buddhism, in the Buddhist teachings, there is no eternal hell. There is punishment, karma, for what you have done. But there is no eternal hell. So you can see how accommodating the Buddha actually was. He wasn't trying to please people, but he was saying it the way he saw it. And he could see the hells, the hell worlds, that people will go in they will have to suffer for what they've done, and when that energy is finished, they will leave. They can go to other places. There is the opportunity to further improve once you have paid for your mistakes. So I use this word paid between inverted commas. But in the Buddha's teachings, there is no such thing as purely evil person. Because in other religions, there is a purely evil person who is always looking for opportunity to, cover other people's eyes as to, their teachings. In Buddhism, there is no such thing as Satan or devil. But there is, in the Buddhist teachings, the perfectly good man. The perfectly good man is the Arahant. And any one of us, if we put enough effort, of course it might take a few lives, can be perfectly good. So you can see that there is no paranoia. There is no cause to worry about eternal hell. If you want, you can go and study other religions. No problem. Yeah. And if you think that they are good, you stay there. But if you think that they are no good, you can always come back. So there have been many people, they become monks, they leave, then they come back and become monks, and then they leave, and it's still allowed. Although I believe the number of times is 9. You can't do more than 9 times in the Sangha and out, in the Sangha and out. Yeah. So you can see now that what we are studying and practicing, these teachings are very inclusive, allows for a very wide range of practices without being fearful, without damnation or eternal hell, that others are scaring their people with. Now, we have to address this, because this is the current topic, the LGBT, and sometimes they add another word, Q, another letter, LGBTQ question within Buddhism. In fact, it is a non-starter question, meaning it's already been answered. And the answer is, if you enter the Sangha, and this is for the monks, the question of sex is finished. You don't even talk about it, because monks don't have sex, right? And neither do nuns, don't have sex. So therefore, the question of sexuality does not come up. The very first rule of the monk's code of conduct, the Patimokkha, says if a monk has sex of any kind, meaning if he has sex with this monk, with a woman or with a man, he is automatically disqualified from the Sangha. They call it defeated. He has been defeated by his defilements. Although he has entered, he has put on the robes, he has shaved his hair, he has good intentions, those good intentions have been defeated. Therefore, he has to go and never will be accepted again. This is a grave offense, very, very serious. The strange thing though, let me tell you, it doesn't work for nuns. Is it favoritism? I don't know. If a nun is caught having sex, she is told off, she must confess, she is punished, but she doesn't have to leave. This is what I read. Please do your own research to see whether it's true or not. Because when I read it and I saw videos on it, I thought, hey, this is a little bit unfair. Right? It seems that the Buddha was partial towards nuns, rather than monks. So that's the first thing. We don't really talk about it within the Sangha. You do it, you leave. Simple as that. Because people cannot respect you anymore. Then enlightenment, if you are going for it, if you are in search of enlightenment, and the Buddha said the main purpose of renunciation is enlightenment. There's no other purpose. The whole reason why he organized the Sangha is for these people to achieve enlightenment. But today, people become monks for a variety of reasons. But that is the main reason. Now, in other religions, homosexuality is a big problem because in their minds, who you are is the creation of God. God created you in this way. And then you go and change it, God is very unhappy. So it's a big deal to them, isn't it? For Buddhists, it's not such a big deal. You are like this because of your karma. So I'm not sure what homosexual people or transgender people have done, but they have done something that makes them different from the rest. And here is the word different. And today we are talking about inclusion. So, how big is your heart? Are you ready to accept, not monk? Because a monk, whether he is homosexual or not, we don't question that anymore. Because I have found in my preparation that monks say, yes, they feel that they are homosexual monks within the Sangha today. But they don't do anything wrong. So why do I bring up the subject? They follow the Patimokkha. They do not go against the Vinaya. So the matter is never brought up. Right? It is only us lay people that has got a lot of problems. Because when you come and someone is not like you, everybody goes off. Everybody feels uncomfortable because they are not like us. Right? So this is where we have to discuss and understand. One of the things that I have also come to realize is, if you think that this group of people are abnormal, are weird, and not acceptable, don't think that you cannot become like them in your next life. Because of your aversion, you might be drawn to them in your next life. Because very often, people get what they don't like. Just let you know, my grandfather had a great dislike for mechanics. He looked down on people who repaired cars. Then after that, his son became a mechanic. My uncle. And that drove the old man, made him very unhappy. You can go and do other things, but don't be one of those dirty people who repair cars. Yeah. But my uncle, he became one. Don't think so highly of yourself that you are a man. I'm a man. I don't have all these womanly problems. And anyway, in Buddhism, men have higher status. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, because some people take the cue from the time of the formation of the nuns. Yeah, the Buddha said nuns must be under the protection of the monks. They must be nearby. So there seems to be, an elevation of the men's status. When you take it from there, or you follow those kind of practices, you will say that men, are in a higher position than monks. But if you study the stories of the Sangha, nuns and monks attain Nibbana the same way. The same. Yeah. In fact, some of the greatest, the best in certain areas, like being able to see things from afar, the supernormal powers, they were owned or they could be done by nuns. Extra abilities. Yeah, they were already enlightened, but because of their practice, I think the samatha aspects, they had extra powers, better than the monks. And there were those who could teach the Buddha's teachings better than the monks, the nuns. But it so happens that in our Asian culture, men are given more prominence than women. So sometimes men will look down on women. But don't forget, this only for this life. Next life you become woman. It can change. It goes around. So don't be too full of yourself. I'm men. Only men become Buddhas. So I'm very special. There have not been women Buddhas. And there's a reason for that as well. Right. So thinkings can change. So be very careful. In that, if you sometimes, because I teach, I used to teach, I'm retired, teach in the university, you can get the strangest things happening among young people nowadays. You might not like homosexuals, but suddenly you discover your son is a homosexual. And then what are you going to do? I had this judge come to see me, because I called him in. He dropped the son at the gate, and this guy would disappear. And so I have to call in the father to tell, your son is not coming to class. And then he said, but I drop him every morning, then I go to, he's a judge. He's a judge. And then he began to think, if he gets into trouble, he starts selling drugs, one day the police might arrest him, and he has to appear before me, because I'm a judge. That never came true. The boy was not a bad boy, but he was very playful. So it might happen. In his mind, it could happen. So therefore, always accept things as being changeable. This is a changeable environment that we are living in. It's a changeable existence. There was a monk who entered the order as a man, and eventually, few months later or few years later, he started to have women's characteristics. And so the Buddha said, maybe you should join the nun. Right. So he went off to join the nun, and a few months later, all the man's characteristic came back, and he said, I think he said to others, I think I better come back to the monastery. There are cases today like that. People, because of their hormones, they start changing. What once was taught as never change. You are a man, you're a man. You're a woman, you're a woman. But in real fact, if you ask those doctors, there is kind of an overlap of genders. So therefore, it encourages us to be more accepting. In the Aganya Sutta, it states that when this area of the universe was created, the beings that first appeared had no gender, no sex. They were neither male nor female. Then after that, when desire appeared, they split into male or female. The Brahma beings, they are higher than the Deva beings. They have no gender. They are just like that. They don't think of themselves as male or female. They are just, peaceful beings with no inclination towards having sex at all. It's a disturbance to many, to them. So anyway, just to let you know this, because it's interesting to know. There is this word called pandaka. In my research, it appeared quite a number of times, which is mentioned in the Vinaya. that describes a person as some kind of sexual pervert. He's a monk, but he keeps on disturbing the other monks to have sex with him. Yeah. So it is described. It is, because it was described in a few places, I think during that time it was quite a problem. Yeah, because it came up in a few places. So the Vinaya stipulates that Pandakas, if you suspect that they are like this, and let's talk about this word, the meaning afterwards. The Buddha said, if you think they are like this, don't accept them. And if you think they are already inside, yeah, you kick them out. They are not to be within the Buddha's, the Sangha, this Pandaka type. So many people interpreted that the Pandaka, and this is commentary, is not within the sutta, as being full of passions, unquenchable lust, and are dominated by the desire for sex. So these are very lustful people. But there are also writers who said a Pandaka is a homosexual. But I think, that's why I told you at the beginning, I'm going to share with you my opinions. I think it is not true. Yeah. After reading, I think it could be that there is a homosexual, but it could be that this monk also runs after women. It is possible. So the Buddha said, you find these people, you kick them out. You see, he wanted to maintain the purity of the Sangha as much as possible. So now, I share with you, you know him, I need not introduce Ajahn Brahm. He said, religion should never be cruel to anybody. Here's our lead. Because the whole idea of spirituality is to have peace, harmony, kindness, and love towards everyone. There is nothing in the sutras, in the teachings of the Buddha, which discriminates against anybody, no matter what race, religion, or sexual orientation they might possess. I do ask all Buddhists to please show compassion and respect for everybody. Yeah, so you know Ajahn Brahm, you know how kind a person, he is very accommodating. So now, what about layman relationships? Buddhism does not view marriage of any kind, even same-sex marriage, as a religious matter. It is nothing to do with Buddhism. You want to do whatever, you do. But in some religions, getting married is a requisite. You must get married. You must have children in those religions. But in Buddhism, it's your business, the Buddha said. Marriage, romantic relationships, and having children are entirely, our responsibility. This is provided the relationships do not lead to difficulties. And the Buddha did not say you cannot have more than one wife. Okay, nobody jump up, enjoy, right? It's okay. The Buddha didn't say it, but the Buddha did not say it's good. Because in the Parabhava Sutta, the Buddha said, if you are a womanizer, the chances are you will have a downfall. You will have problems. You will have a lot of wife problems. So one wife enough, don't have too many wives. Already it's quite a handful. Right? So the Buddha advised, because it's all to do with enjoyment. We want to enjoy. We want to have this, we want to have that. But the Buddha said, have moderation. You can enjoy the senses, but don't be silly about it. Don't overdo it until you get into trouble. I have worked in places where the wife and the girlfriend met each other and fought. No, I heard the story. But the wife did come to the office to attack the girlfriend. So it is very, it brings down the respect people have for the person involved. Therefore, we should be very mindful. This word is very important, about what we do. So here is the respected, very venerable master Xing Yin. He also passed away recently. He said, people often ask me what I think about homosexuality. They wonder, is it right, is it wrong? The answer is, it's not right, it's not wrong. It's just something that people do. If people are not harming each other, their private lives are their own business, according to this wise monk. We should be tolerant of them and not reject them. Right? So they are not going against the order of God. They are just like that. They did not ask to be like that, but their karma has made them different from us. Whether you think it's a punishment or whether you think it is right or wrong is entirely up to you. Venerable Master said, it's your opinion. You cannot, have a bias against these people. They are just as, they have as much right to be in society as we have. So with that, I would like to thank you for your kind attention. So we should appreciate our blessings that we are living in this country, and we have, by and large, a great deal of freedom to do what we want to do, and accept things which are not normal in our experience. Because walking the path to reality, if we want to develop ourselves, the experiences that we will go through when we walk the Noble Eightfold Path is not normal. We will come to experiences that will sometimes shock us. So it depends on how accepting you are of unusual, sometimes even strange experiences. Because reality is like that. We think reality is one way, but when we experience reality, it's another way. So some people cannot let go of their old ideas about self, about life, about how things should be. Their progress along the Noble Eightfold Path is very, very slow. So open the heart. Be ready to accept things as they really are. Just observe them with mindfulness. And our happiness should grow greater and greater. Thank you.